when you look at the contribution of any industry to the changing climate in Africa, the first thing to say is that Africa is a negligible emitter. And because of that, every industry actually have an opportunity to move towards a low carbon pathway, which this simply means to focus on leveraging clean energy solutions, sun, hydro, geothermal. And when you look at the flower industry, especially in Kenya, it's actually getting into the space of clean energy. 50% of most energy of the flower industry comes from renewable energy, which is solar. And when you look at Kenya, for example, because we cannot discuss that without putting the country in perspective, 89% of Kenya's energy is renewable, but only 1% comes from solar. And so I think the bigger question should be, what needs to be done to be able to tap the abundant solar, 365 days of sunshine? And the cost of solar globally has actually reduced by 50%. And that is a big opportunity. And so when you look at that, and the big question then becomes, what needs to be done to move towards solar so that industry, the flower industry, transport industry, and any other industry can then be able to tap into this? Then it takes us to 3 points, which is, the first is that if you look at the entire African continent today, most of the countries have submitted their climate action plans, which are called nationally determined contributions. They've ratified them in their national capitals. If you take Kenya, for example, Kenya have ratified, and Kenya have actually revised their NDCs to reduce emissions by up to 32% in the next 7 years as we speak today. And within this, agriculture and clean energy are actually top priorities, carrying 70%. So what needs to be done is to translate those plans into what is called investment plans. For example, the flower industry that you mentioned, investing in clean energy and specifically solar, and making their full operation 100% solar, needs to see what they're going to gain by moving away from their current operations to clean energy operations. And that means that turning the NDCs into investment plans to show the value, the financial returns, the opportunities, will then attract more industries to pick up on solar. And that is one. So to turn NDC into investment plans, because currently in Africa, 70% of those NDCs have not been turned into investment plans. And that is not an opportunity for the continent, because then investors are not coming in to invest. The second aspect, which I think is very, very key, is that energy alone is not what we should be talking about, but we should be talking energy from the perspective of being an engine sector. What I mean by that is that it's an enabler. It's an enabler because if you look at the entire African continent today, 65% of the population is in rural areas. So Africa is pretty much what I call an informal continent. Our mothers and brothers in communities, for them to access energy, they will not be able to do that through grid. They will need off-grid, which solar constitutes a big chunk of it. And therefore, looking at energy, what I call competitive energy, which industries can be able to leverage to add value. To add value, because if you just use energy to provide lighting to homes, that's fine, but you are missing out a big opportunity, because a mother in a community today who gets clean energy and is using it to provide electricity in his or her home will not be able to buy the light bulb if that energy is not also used to add value to agricultural produce. Because speaking, 48 billion US dollars is lost in the continent as a result of post-harvest losses. Why? Lack of value addition. That energy can also be used to add value to what is produced. That will mean more money in the pocket and food on the table. So looking at it from that holistic perspective, seeing energy as an enabler, seeing energy as a competitive arsenal to drive other sectors becomes important. And the third one is, in the continent, which is pretty much a negligible emitter, 365 days of sunshine, we cannot be able to miss the biggest constituency, which is the youth. Over 60% of the entire African population are youthful. Paradoxically, 60% are unemployed. Can we start to ensure that every educational curriculum, vocational education, training schools, get energy integrated, not just as part of the teachings, but from a practical perspective, so that the young people are trained, they come out with energy skills, so that the flower industry you mentioned can start to employ these people to be able to be part of their operational chain in terms of fixing the solar batteries, fixing the solar panels, fixing all those aspects. Then opportunity will be created and jobs will be created. And the last is incentives. Governments have to put incentives in place so that flower industries can venture into the clean energy sector, especially solars. And what are these incentives? Tax breaks that the industries that are using clean energy solutions could actually be able to benefit from tax breaks. They can be able to import clean energy parts without tariffs, without taxes. And so those duty excesses that can be given will see most industry, the flower industry, venturing 100% into the solar space. The continent is a negligible emitter, but suffers the worst impacts of climate change. But on the other side, it's an opportunity. Why is it an opportunity? Very simple. Africa, being a negligible continent and being a low industrialized continent, can leapfrog. And what that simply means is that they are not going to get into the heavy investments in assets that are going to be standard. That is, fossil fuel assets will not be relevant in the next 10 years. Why? Because the shift in the global economy today is moving towards low emission development pathway, clean energy solutions. We're talking about e-mobility. Kenya the other day launched e-mobility, and currently in Parliament looking forward to produce an e-mobility policy, an e-mobility law. What does that mean? An enabling environment for e-vehicles. That means if you move towards that, you are in the right direction. So the continent of Africa have an opportunity to transition to where the world is moving, and that means they're going to tap into trillions. And the second opportunity is that Africa is an informal continent. I'll go back to what I said. Over 65% of the continent is in rural areas. They can only benefit and be transformed when off-grid electricity and off-grid energy is leveraged. And that off-grid is clean energy and solar. And so Africa cannot be able to address the energy insecurity issues without tapping to clean energy. Off-grid fossil-driven approaches will not work. The third is that you are in a continent today where what drives the GDP of the entire continent is not oil, because not all the countries have oil. It's not minerals. Not all the countries have minerals. It's agriculture. But the production is lost. When they produce, it is lost through post-harvest losses. To add value, you need clean energy, abundant soil, simple solar dryers, decentralized to mothers in community. Have seen them not only reduce their yields by up to 300%, but create jobs for the youth who are developing those solar dryers. And so that system thinking and looking at opportunities can be able to build resilience. Because at the end of the day, let's never forget, the biggest climate resilience is socio-economic opportunities, putting money in more pockets and food on the table. People are becoming more conscious today about the environment and more so about climate change. The droughts and floods are no longer an abstract issue. People are seeing it every day and they're suffering the impacts. The drought in Turkana, over 2 million people affected in the Horn of Africa. Kids going to bed hungry. The point is protecting the environment and the consciousness of what we produce, how we process it, is getting more significant because of people's health. And the reality is that organic food and nature-based driven approaches that are used to work with nature, not against nature, to produce food is more nutritious. And empirical studies have shown that what is produced using nature-based solutions actually is more nutritious and have chemicals that can boost the immune system of humans. And then when value is added using clean energy, it enhances and reduces aflatoxin, which most of these has been related with research to cancer causing what is called carcinogens. And as a result of that, the nature-based driven food production processes are good for humans. And that means that in future, not really far from now, people will be buying what is produced using nature-based approaches, what is processed using clean energy solutions. And because of that, that is where a big market is. Because let's face it, in the continent of Africa today, there is a market gap that is worth 150 billion US dollars. Africa imports food over 43 billion US dollars. And at the same time, they have a market that is on top worth 150 billion US dollars. So if nature-based solutions, environmental approaches can be leveraged to be applied at production, processed using clean energy solutions, that market could be tapped into. And so moving towards green solutions is good business. policy is the biggest driver of change, and policy is not cast in stone. Feedback from the end users, who are actually the citizens, the Wananchi, the Mamambogas, and the communities, is quite very, very important. What needs to happen, and I'll still say this, Kenya is a leader when it comes to clean energy. And as I started off by saying that 89% of clean renewable energy in Kenya, 1% only comes from solar. What does that mean? Decentralizing off-grid using solar is where Kenya now needs to revise their energy bill, which Kenya actually have an excellent fit-in tariff, giving tax breaks to those who use that. But the energy bill needs now really to utilize solar to get it done to the communities. But the feedback from the communities and from the Mamambogas that they need a revision in policy is a good thing. But the big question within that is, it's not just to be electricity to use for lighting, it now needs to move to electricity to use to add value. And therefore, to do that, one of the easiest way is to be able for government to integrate this within the school curriculum again, as I said, so that the workforce become available, the manpower to repair solar panels, to repair and contribute to ensuring that in rich communities, the manpower is there. And as a result of that, it will become a business for employment, and government will benefit and the communities will benefit. And so revision of policy to integrate aspects that address the community is important. Yeah, an African proverb tells us that if you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accident. The facts of climate change are real. The droughts are not only causing suffering, we're seeing lives lost that cannot be bought with money. We're seeing floods that are displacing millions of people across the continent today. As a result of these challenges and the realities that we're seeing, there is an opportunity if action is taken. And that action doesn't necessarily need to be taken by people elsewhere. It's already been taken today by communities, the informal sector, the young people. They're driving solutions, turning agricultural waste into fuel briquettes that are replacing charcoal. That in the course of doing this is reducing indoor pollution and saving lives of over 700,000 Africans who die every year because of indoor pollution. That's an opportunity, and what is needed here is incentives, tax breaks for those young people who are already venturing in driving these clean solutions. We are seeing young people developing solar dryers that are helping mothers reduce post-harvest losses and put more money in their pockets. What these young people need incentives, tax breaks, and also using these lessons to inform policy. So at the end of the day, the solutions to climate change do exist. What is needed is a willing citizenry. Each and every one of us playing our part, regardless of whether we are in government or not, because at the end of the day, climate change is an investment opportunity, and it's also a business opportunity. And each and every one of us, regardless of domain, can tap into it.